I didn't name it self-employed wealth. I named it something else, which was why I couldn't. Uh, but even if they had disappeared, I probably could have pulled something together. But it's kind of nice to have. Oh, where I don't know why I'm. There we go. There we go. Self-employed wealth. You think I would have called these slides self-employed wealth. So I want to welcome not only the folks that are here in the Zoom room, making me super happy that I have humans to talk to and look at today, but I want to also welcome, I know there's quite a few people who will be checking this out, sitting in on the replay. And I encourage you, if you are here on the replay, to shut down like your multiple tabs and all of that. Maybe even because there's some questions I'll be asking here. So you might even want, your laptop or a notebook to take some notes to play along with some of the questions we'll be considering here today. And I think we'll be here for about an hour, maybe a little less or maybe a little more with questions. And you'll see here on the screen it says money maps, because this is sort of the self-employed edition of my money maps, and some of you know my MAPS formula. It's really sort of the basis of what I do. I'm going to introduce that to you today and talk about how it applies to being self-employed, because it's a framework. It's a framework that we can use in any situation, but clearly being self-employed is kind of its own unique situation. Who am I? I am a wealth coach. I call myself a wealth educator and a holistic wealth coach. I'm also a financial author and writer. You may see behind me, I'm going to unshare so my square gets bigger here. A book that I co-wrote with Kim Butler, Perpetual Wealth. I helped her on several books, editing and co-writing. And this one I did the bulk of the writing on. It's perhaps backwards on your screen, I don't know, but it is a book about generational wealth. And Kim Butler is a life insurance expert. And so there's there's a lot of information about using life insurance to create multi-generation wealth and all. There's so much good stuff in there. It's a meaty book, and also a lot of great info about just how is wealth grown in a family, how is it lost, how is it kept. Those are the big questions, and I've had we've had fantastic feedback on that book, so I'll give myself a little plug there. And all of a sudden my Zoom doesn't want to let me share again. What's going on? There we go. There we go. And I see Corey sneaking into the room. Welcome, Corey. Great to have you. We just started a couple of minutes ago. And so I'm talking about who I am. I've also been a realtor. I've been a real estate investor and landlord, recently a landlord again, a restaurant owner, small business coach and trainer. I've done quite a bit of marketing. I've created a lot of different workshops and programs. Some of the folks on the call have taken one or more of my programs. I became an investment geek back in 2020, actually earned enough money to be able to leave my independent contractor work at that point in time. And I'm also a content creator, and I have a YouTube channel, the Total Wealth Show. So that's who I am. And self-employed for 26 years. I think that gives me the right to talk about this. Self-employed wealth. Very familiar with the challenges and the advantages of self-employment, independent contracting, solopreneurship. For part of that 26 years, I was a realtor. I definitely consider that to be self-employment, even though you are certainly working in tandem with a brokerage typically. But that was a big turning point in my life. I went from restaurant work, both waiting tables and then becoming a restaurant owner. I do kind of a public service now. If anybody thinks they want to open a restaurant, we can have like coffee or Zoom meeting and I'll talk you out of it and you can thank me later. That's just a public service I provide for humanity. And when I became a realtor, I almost instantly started making six figures. I was a six-figure single mom and really went through a lot of changes also in my mindset around money. I felt like I started teaching classes. That's when I started teaching workshops about money to uh, other primarily women and a few brave men, and felt like I had the money thing figured out, and definitely felt like I had found my calling. I brought a very different viewpoint to it. It wasn't just your typical financial what do we call it? Oh, there's a word, financial literacy. For some reason, something bugs me about that phrase. And I brought a much more holistic viewpoint to it. Felt like I'd found my calling, had the money thing figured out. I bought a dream home near a lake, a block away from a lake, left my real estate career that same year that I bought my dream home for myself and my daughter. I also bought another, I think at the time it was my third or fourth investment property out of state, the first one that I had purchased out of state in Idaho. Kind of felt like I was like almost semi-retired at that point, but I was really looking forward to growing my coaching business. And when you buy two properties in 2007, and when all of your assets are in real estate, you might imagine that in pretty shortly after all of that, I hit a big financial storm. Really big financial storm. In about 18 months, all of my assets became liabilities, and the business that I was building became very difficult to build. It was, even though you might think, gee, a lot of people were probably looking for your services during the Great Recession, or I like to call it the not so great recession. It wasn't really so great for me. But it was a very challenging time building a business in the middle of the recession. And I became the wealth coach who lost it all. It all unraveled. Um, uh, the assets, the income. I had moved, a good hour away from where I had been doing real estate, so that was really no longer practical anymore. And I had moved to a neighborhood that was very close to where my daughter's father, my ex-husband, lived. So sometimes we make decisions. I also started caregiving my father during that time, which was its own challenge. Sometimes we make decisions that make sense in one way. Those decisions all made perfect sense from the point of view of a mother and a daughter and a family person who wanted to be there for their family members. It made no financial sense whatsoever. But eventually I did start to recover. And I consider that period of my life my divine training program. And I would say at that moment, it didn't feel much like a divine training program. It felt like I'm totally off course. What's going on with my life? Losing everything. I even lost my home in foreclosure. But over time, I can look back and see the many, many lessons that time provided me. It was it in the eye of the storm. I found a lot of calmness, even while I was, going through a foreclosure and the caregiving and the single momming, all of that. I found really a strength, and I found a prosperity that I don't know that I knew was there, because over the years of my financial success, I was starting to rely on the external assets as my real worth and value. And when those things vanished, then it really allowed me to discover my own worth and value disconnected from all of the externals. It also allowed me to discover what I still consider my missions today, to expand awareness of unconditional abundance and also to provide wealth education beyond the Wall Street box, I will say. And our goals for today, for this session here, my commitment is that you're going to walk away with some perspective, with some new possibilities, maybe with some clarity, with some actionable next steps. Whether those steps are ones that you take on your own or next steps with me. And I used to make the mistake of sort of leaving that story there, and then I'd get to the end of a presentation and I'd say, "Oh, maybe people think I'm still homeless. I don't know." But I took this, I took this picture. It was about 9 years after losing my home, and when this picture was taken in early 2018, my daughter took that. We were in Kauai together, and I was in escrow on a townhome in the little town in central Washington state named Cle Elum. I still own that townhome. I'm still there. I'm still there sometimes. Right now, I'm in Yakima. I'm converted that into a midterm rental, and it's sort of more my second home than my first home now. But just love that little town. And I have created multiple streams of income over those years, coaching courses, books. I still get royalties on the Perpetual Wealth book. Um, Writing, I've got a question mark there because I've sort of bounced in and out of doing some writing and marketing work for advisors and other financial um, leaders. And I've also had investments. I'm not monetized yet on YouTube, but I'm crossing my fingers that this is the year that happens. And there's also an advantage to synergy when, something that happens sometimes with self-employed folks is they'll launch a business and then it's like, oh, I'm not quite ready to make a living that way. And then they will go ahead and, get a side gig or a part-time job or that kind of thing. And sometimes they'll have two or three sources of income that are completely disconnected and unrelated to each other. And I think one of the secrets in self-employed wealth is when you start creating multiple streams of income that are actually connected with each other. Christine mentioned, she's got a ranch. She makes money, selling food. She also started a coaching program for land stewards, for people who are wanting to have a ranch or a farm. So those are obviously very tightly connected. She has many streams of income. I think if you broke them down to the line items, there would be many sources and streams of income, but they relate to each other in different ways. So that's kind of I think a fun secret there. So let's self-employment. I've got I've done the research and I kind of know what the data says, but I'd love to hear from you. What do you love about it? And what do you find most challenging? And I'll invite you, you can unmute and blurt it out, or you can use the chat. Either way, I'll pull up the chat so I can see comments. I would love to know what you love about it and what you find challenging about it. Oh, and thank you, George. George said he highly recommends my debt cure program, and my George was also and Pat were both in my retirement revival program. I've got a fun little announcement about that later today. I think it is evolving a little bit. Erratic income versus consistent salary. Amen. Amen. Yes, erratic and yeah. there's not a lot of predictability to income when you're self-employed. Sometimes there's more or less. When, my writing technically is self-employment, but when I was writing, I wrote for 11 years with Kim Butler, and for probably 10 of those 11 years, it was extremely predictable, because I was doing a weekly blog, a weekly newsletter, and there were always extra projects that would fill my time as well. So, the income went up and down a little bit, but there was a predictability to it. When I was a realtor, and I was a realtor for 8.5 years when I left the restaurant business, and that could be very feast or famine. There was consistency year to year, but month to month, there was no consistency. And I remember if I would go 2 or 3 months without selling a house, like your mind starts playing with you. I'd start feeling like, I'm never gonna sell a house again, never. And then the next month you'd like sell two and you'd have, $35,000 or maybe three houses. But it was very hard to predict, that's for sure, even though there was a year to year consistency. Um, be your own boss. Yeah, that's a huge, oh my gosh. Even with real estate, even though I technically was my own boss, you also have to be available for folks who want you. With writing, you've got to get your writing work done. But what I loved about writing was I could definitely set my own hours, other than maybe a weekly meeting or 1 or 2 meetings a week. I completely designed my own schedule. I love not having to ask somebody permission to take a vacation. And then, well, what if they say no? What if there's already two other people taking a vacation that week and I can't take it? Like, oh my gosh, I'm very wired for freedom and independence. That doesn't really work for me, to have somebody tell me, no, you can't go travel to that place at this time. Christine says, I'm not forced into a rigid schedule. As a solopreneur, I can adjust to nature's cycle and my own energy. Love that. Yeah. I know sometimes it's like, wow, I just really want to take the morning off, or maybe even the whole day. And I'll look at my calendar. And, sometimes there's like, oh, there's an appointment, or I'm teaching a class at this time. But sometimes I can just look at my calendar and go, why not? Like go drive to my favorite lake, the north of Cle Elum, that nobody can reach me there. There's no cell phone service or internet there, and take some time to myself. Being my own boss has shown me my weaknesses and conditioned tendencies. So there's a lot of healing. Ooh, that sounds intriguing. Is there anything else you want to say about that, Christine?
Yeah. I mean, the one that pertains to this is, I had to recognize that, uh, when experiencing financial stress, because bills come, and then when you don't have the income to pay, my nervous system, my nervous system went into flight or flight, and I found I wasn't as creative. Like, there was these opportunities that were happening on my blind spots. I was so tunnel vision. How do I make the next income? How do I get this next income? That I missed a whole bunch of opportunities that were around me, but I was just not aware. And then I guess I don't like confrontation. And so I have learned that I have a habit of completely disconnecting and ignoring the issue. And it's much easier to go watch a series on Netflix than it is to address whatever issue I'm dealing with.
Yes, as somebody with a YouTube addiction, I can relate to that. But it's always easy, yeah, to go. So sometimes there's an advantage. I think it's one of the advantages that employment gives us is, first of all, some stability, some predictability in our cash flow, and that makes us feel safe. there's definitely, there's definitely a relationship between what's going on financially and how safe we feel.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's very, directly connected, where if I don't pull in this amount of money, I mean, I lost into 2010, I lost my home. That was, that's the bottom layer of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So very, and 15 years later, I'm still working through that trauma. I can spin into the like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my house. And then I go, wait a minute, I'm not even late on my mortgage payments. Like nobody's going to show up and take my house because I have a bad week, It's so it's but trauma isn't always logical. And I've worked with enough people to know it was one of the big surprises my first year of doing financial coaching is that I always thought, just I think from my own limited experiences of somebody who didn't have a tremendous level of wealth at that time, sometimes multimillionaires who were hiring me because they felt so stressed about money. I was not expecting that. That was not um, that was not who I thought my clientele would be, but there was a tremendous amount of stress at that time. If you have $4 million and the market crashes and all of a sudden you've got 2 million, you don't, your sense of safety, like you just lost $2 million. Like that's a really big deal. So financial stress impacts people all across the spectrum in similar ways, even though their problems are different, even though their resources are different. We do have our sense of safety tied to our money, a lot of us in a lot of ways. And I think that's one of the things that I had to sort of unhook over time. And I'm still, unhooking it, but I had to disconnect. And sometimes when there's enough pressure, I totally get what you mean. When you're stressed, it can be really hard to be creative. And at the same time, I also would sometimes, when there gets to be enough pressure, like sometimes you have to get creative or courageous or bold. So, and it can be an interesting dance around that. But no, I appreciate you sharing, Christine, about that. That yeah, nervous system work, which 15 years ago, I don't even think that was in the lexicon at all. But now it's much more common to know and understand that we do have to do that nervous system work, and that's the work around like feeling safe. And I used to, even 15, 20 years ago, help clients. I didn't know about nervous system work, but I knew I would lead them sometimes in a meditation or visualization, and we would talk about safety, and we would talk about like the here and now. And so much of our fears come from either regrets around the past that we're beating ourselves up for, or fear of the future and what's going to happen, when oftentimes when we drill down into this moment, oh, I'm okay. Oh, I actually know what I'm having for my next meal. There's water, there's electricity, there's a roof over my head. Like, yes, there may be some challenges as well, but sometimes when we drill down into the present moment, we realize things are okay. I actually am safe right now. And then from there, we can go, what are my next steps to create that next cash flow? So other challenges, getting back to the comments, George, I can choose where I want to be located. No physical location to restrict me. Yes, location freedom. That's something, oh, sorry, Christine has a whole lot of cows to take care of. So that's probably not so much in her world, but for a lot of us, location freedom. And when I became my father's caregiver and I could no longer go out and build my business the way I had been building it, which was through live in-person workshops and networking. This was before the time of Zoom. I had to stay home and keep my father out of trouble. He was more trouble than my teenage daughter, believe it or not. And what I ended up doing was building a new career, a new business with the writing work that when my father eventually moved into assisted living, I was like, oh, I'm location independent. This is amazing. So some more comments here. I can choose who I want to work with and don't have to work with. Yes, when you're an employee, you don't get that choice. Challenge is figuring out how to plan, how to bring consistent income without burning myself out or feeling overwhelmed. How much time it takes on creating content creation like video, email marketing, and such. Yes. And also, uh, this is actually a visual. I was kind of describing a visualization I used to do years ago with clients, but we did do one in the retirement program around shame. I remember that, and there might have. I think we did one also in the debt cure. It also might have been around shame. Let me get back to my notes here. Those are fantastic. See, you guys did a lot of the heavy lifting here. Some things that are great about it, some things that might not be so great. And what the data shows is that self-employed folks tend to have, like, if you look at maybe folks of the same age, like people who are 60, employees versus self-employed, they tend to have about half of the amount in investments. And the data is a little hard to interpret because if I look at different sources, if we look at small business owners versus employees, depending on the type of business, sometimes small business owners are ahead of where employees are. It all really just depends, I would say, but oftentimes self-employed folks have less in investments. They also tend to be happier and more satisfied, and maybe partially because they have less in investments. They tend to retire later, maybe because they retire later. They tend to live longer, a little longer, not a lot, but a little bit longer. And self-employed folks also report being more aligned with their mission and their interests. So rather than, showing up and punching a clock or doing something that they're told to do, or something that happens a lot with self-employed folks, or sorry, with employees, is they will go into a career that does inspire them and that they do enjoy, but then over the years, sometimes, they work for different companies and the rules change, or they get a little bit burned out. So sometimes that passion that people start with in their 20s or 30s is not there later. And unfortunately, there's a lot of folks who can't wait to retire just so that they can stop doing the thing that they are doing because they are burned out or tired of it, or the corporate politics. Or I always say that sometimes you're just absolutely ready to quit the commute, the cubicle, the corporate politics, the career. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're ready to quit work altogether if we look at work as more this cycle of giving and receiving, and we are contributing to others in some way. It could be through volunteer work, but for a lot of people, it is continuing to work, but perhaps through, in some sort of self-employed way, and still receiving money and compensation. So there are 4 secrets. This is my M.A.P.S framework to making money work for you. Is there anyone who would be interested in knowing the 4 secrets? Anyone? Bueller? Okay. Okay. You look like you'd like me to share them. So this is my M.A.P.S framework. I'm going to give, you know what? No, I will go ahead and show you the overall, but then I'm going to break it down step by step. the big picture here. MAPS, M.A.P.S stands for mindset, action, plan, and support. And these four things, these four quadrants, they cover most, not all, but I would say the great majority of my work, the great majority of really what most people are dealing with. And today I want to give you some insight into each of these and how it also pertains to being self-employed. So M, the mindset, or we could even say, now I've kind of expanded my own definition. It's not just mindset, but I could also say mind/body. We were just talking about the nervous system work and how important that is. When I say mindset, I could mean a lot of different things, and would love to see in the chat if you want to jot in when I say mindset, what comes up for you? Like, what are the different aspects or elements of mindset?
Like self-doubt, like the words that you're telling yourself, like if
Yes, it could be, yeah, self-talk.
Mhm.
What are we saying to ourselves? What are the narratives that we're steeped in? What are the stories that we have around money? Could include attitude. Christine says scarcity or abundance. Yeah, it could include our goals. It could our interpretations, how we are managing. How we react to the information that we see in the world, all of those things. And a huge thing that we deal with mindset are our beliefs, because our beliefs become our results. Our beliefs really create a filter through which how we see the world, what is possible for us, what results are possible. So beliefs are a huge thing. I just did a few weeks ago a money belief breakthrough workshop as part of my women's prosperity group, which is the Wealth Alignment Circle. I still have that recording available for members, and I do it at least once every year, and I always learn something going through the process. We go through a process of inventorying our money beliefs, and then being able to select what we want, what we don't want, go through a process for releasing beliefs that are no longer serving us. And there are, for the sake of today, I'm going to say 5 types of beliefs to predict your results with money. And this is sort of the outline for the inventory that we take in the money belief breakthrough workshop. And the first type are your beliefs about money. Do you believe that it's hard to make, that it's easy to make? Do you believe that money is the root of all evil? What is it that you believe about money? The second type, your beliefs, people with money. If you believe that people with money are not good people, or that they've all done something unethical to get where they are, or they're greedy, or they don't pull their weight, and we can think of all kinds of stereotypes. This is really one of the things that I went through when I started to revamp my own money story, was coming to terms with what I have to call prejudice. I realized that I wasn't relating to actual human beings who had various amounts of wealth. I was relating to my stereotypes about them and judging them and labeling them and making assumptions, and then keeping myself broke through, well, I don't want to be one of those people. So my beliefs about people with money were very powerful, and changing those made a huge difference. The third type of belief, your belief about how the world works. We might even call these our metaphysical beliefs, our beliefs about God, the universe, natural law. Reportedly, Albert Einstein says that the most important decision you will ever make is whether we live in a friendly universe or not. Do we believe that things are working together to support us, or do we believe that, that we're doomed and that everything is conspiring against us. The fourth kind of belief, your beliefs about yourself. We could even call this, and we did a whole session yesterday in the Wealth Alignment Circle around identity. Our beliefs around ourselves very much shape our identity. Dr. Maxwell Maltz says you can never outperform your self-image. And this is his book. It's really a classic, one of the first books in the human growth, self-growth, human potential movement. Dr. Maxwell Maltz was a doctor. He became a psychologist, but he started out as a surgeon, as a plastic or surgeon or reconstructive surgeon. And he found out that when he changed people on the outside, it didn't necessarily change how they thought about themselves. And that got him super curious. And then he went off and pioneered this whole other form of work. And a great question to ask yourself sometimes is finishing this sentence. I'm the kind of person who, I always figure it out. I'm the kind of person who always does what they say. I'm the kind of person who, it could be a positive thing or a negative thing. My friend Shamika Tankerson, who's very, very successful, made it in the top 500 of the Inc. 5000 for the fastest growing companies. She had to counter this story in her head that little girls from the hood don't make money like that. She's a Black woman who grew up in Los Angeles and, had her first child as a teenager. And she definitely could have just been a statistic of someone who, encountered challenges and did not really make it to success. But she very much so carved her own path by her own beliefs about herself. And the fifth type, we could say the fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, etc., type of belief would be the beliefs that relate to how you make money or your particular method, what you believe about the economy, about your industry, about your clients and customers, what you think or believe about sales and marketing, very key. What you believe about your team, your partners, your collaborators, your employees, your contractors. And we can have very limiting beliefs in those areas that can make it hard to have a breakthrough. But as we shift our beliefs, new things become possible. So that is the mind, the mindset of the MAPS. And you can have a really fantastic mindset and really work on your mindset a lot. But if you're just like visualizing all day and meditating all day, but if you're not taking any action, then it's going to be hard to move ahead. So the A stands for action, what you do and don't do. Habits are super important, which is what you do and don't do consistently and repeatedly. And I'm in the process of up leveling some of my habits, and they are habits that relate to I have always love marketing, and I have a different relationship with sales than I do with marketing. Sometimes I've been in the sales resistance category, which is really a good thing for any kind of business, although there are ways to automate. There are sometimes the better you are with marketing, the less you have to do sales. But I am having a rebirth with my relationship with sales right now. It's a good thing. There can be key habits, keystone habits, how you manage your time and your activities, prioritizing what's important. Bookkeeping should be one of those things that's important. Deciding also in terms of how you manage your time, not only deciding when you will work, when you will not watch Netflix, when you will not binge on YouTube videos, but when you will work, but also when you won't work. And this, I discovered this as a realtor. It's something I did some mentoring as a real estate, mentoring other real estate agents. And it was one of the things that I would encourage people to do right away is to set yourself up a structure where you are deciding when you will work and when you won't work. Certainly it can flex a little bit, especially when somebody calls and they're like, oh, I want to go see that house tonight. You don't have full control over your schedule, but you do have some control, and you've got to set up those boundaries so that A, your work gets done, but B, you also have time to do the other things that are important to you and you don't burn yourself out. And there's another habit. There's how we treat our actions, how we treat our time, but the investing habit. This is a very key habit that for a lot of self-employed people, it doesn't always happen. and and it's one of the reason why self-employed people tend to have only half of the assets is that they don't have a habit of investing. Now, there's nothing really special about a 401k except the match, which is oftentimes minimal. I was surprised to find that only about half of employees even get any kind at all of a match. And usually the ones that do get a match, it might be like we're matching 50% up to 3% of your income. So the match is generally pretty modest, although I will say in general, when somebody offers you free money, you should say yes and thank you and take the money. But there's nothing special about a 401k. They tend to have high, in terms of as an investment. 401ks tend to have high fees, limited choices. Usually you're being sold mutual funds that are overpriced. They're working with a certain company that, wants to sell you. They want to stack on their fees on top of what they're selling you. The choices are improving a bit. Sometimes people can have an employee sponsored 401k and they can go buy index funds or something that are not overburdened with fees. But then there's also rules and regulations around that money. The government's going to control that. And one of the big mistakes that employees sometimes make is that they put all of their investments in a traditional 401k or IRA environment. And then one day they're retired and they're like, I want to use this lump sum to start a business or buy a second home, or I've got a big emergency or something or I want to splurge on my child's wedding, whatever it is. And they go to take that big lump sum out and they get hit with a really large tax bill because they grew all of their investments in an environment where they would pay pretty much the maximum amount of tax when they withdrew it, and especially if they withdraw it all at once. Doesn't mean not to have, absolutely, it can sometimes make sense to have a traditional, 401k, IRA. You get that tax deferral. It can make a lot of sense in your high income years to have that tax deferral. But there's other containers as well that we could be putting that money into, and so diversifying the containers, having assets where they are in, we can have different sorts of access to them, and especially if you're not yet 59 and a half, where you won't get hit up with penalties as well as the taxes. So the biggest advantage, if you're an employee, the biggest advantage of retirement accounts is how they impact investor behavior. That is the secret that makes retirement accounts aren't so great because of what you invest in. They are great because there is a consistency about them. So the best thing you can do for yourself as a self-employed person is to set up a habit of consistent investing. You don't need an employer to start a retirement account or a brokerage account. But the biggest key to success is making it consistent and or automatic. I love automation. Sometimes automation is hard when you're self-employed, when I'm a realtor and, on the months that I didn't have income coming in, I would still have $1,200 or more dollars going out. It was like an extra mortgage payment because I had my desk fee, and there might be other costs as well. So if money wasn't coming in, it was hard for extra money to go out. But there's other ways. I could even say when a commission check comes in, 10% or 15%, like I could drop a percentage of it straight away into an IRA or into, a brokerage account. So the biggest key is to make sure that you've got a means, and if you do have some consistent money coming in, setting up some automation where money gets snuck out, maybe first to savings and you get the savings built up. Okay, I've got an emergency fund. Now we're sneaking out money into a brokerage account or into a IRA or a Roth IRA. You don't need to have an employer to start an IRA or a Roth IRA. Let me see what this next slide is. Oh yeah, some possibilities. You can start a traditional IRA, contribute. Oh, I've got a tax person on the call here. I think it's about $8,000. It's a little more or less depending on your age. Or a Roth IRA, when you invest in that container, you won't pay taxes on your future gains or your withdrawals. You can also simply invest in a brokerage account. It's not a retirement account. When I'm saying Robinhood offers a match, but not with their brokerage account. Through Robinhood, I opened up a Roth IRA this year, and they offer a match. And I will get you that link. You can get a 1% match as a self-employed person, which is pretty cool. So I think if you're a Robinhood Gold member, I think it might be, they had a 3% match. I'm not sure. I think they might have rolled that back, but that's cool that you can get a match even without an employer. There's also SEP IRAs, simplified employee pensions. There are other ways that you can set up a retirement account beyond the limits of an IRA, which are fairly limited in terms of how much you can invest. And as I said, that's kind of a larger conversation, but to look and see what the different containers are so that you have some flexibility in the taxation and your accessibility to those funds. So I've been talking about actions here, and I'm going to pause and let you think a moment about what are actions that you've been avoiding or procrastinating that you know are important. And feel free to put something in the chat. Thank you. Tanya's the tax gal. $8,000 if you're over 50, 7,000 if you are under 50. That's the Roth IRA limit. So really good to know. So think about.
I feel like for me, I'm getting better at this, like avoiding keeping track of my spending and like what is coming in and coming out. I'm getting back on it. It'll be on Tuesdays. And then I just need to keep up with that. I know I've been off it. That is the one thing at the moment that rang a bell.
Great, great. I probably for the last 2 or 3 years, I've been a part of, my friend Nancy Abramson runs Money Dates on a Monday afternoon, and it's like a bookkeeping accountability group. I will also send out a link to that. There is a cost for that, but it's fairly minimum, and I think everyone who joins figures out that they've more than made back the modest fee, because when you're sitting down once a week and you're looking at the money coming in and the money going out and you're doing your bookkeeping, and we're always catching things like, well, I thought I had that thing. I had that subscription turned off. It's not something I'm using anymore. And, or, one day I sat down and changed cell phone providers and saved all kinds of money just overnight. And habits also, where can you up level your personal habits, your money habits? I'm going to leave this as a hanging question, hypothetical question, because I'm looking at the time and I'm going to go ahead and keep moving forward here. And so far we've covered mindset, we've covered action, and the next part of that MAPS quadrant is plan. And when you have a business or you are self-employed, you've got the personal finance plan, and you also have like what's going on in your business. And I've seen sometimes where people have one of them, they've got it dialed in, but the other one is a mess. If you've got a successful business, but you're spending money hand over fist in your personal life, that's not going to work so well. If you're very frugal in your personal life, but your business isn't making money, that's going to be a challenge. So you've got to pay attention to both of them. Your personal plan and strategy involves how you budget, how you spend, your savings, your investments. Do you buy a home or rent? Retirement planning, those are all involved there with the personal plan. And then we've got the business planner strategy. This involves what you sell, how you price it, how you market, what's your revenue, your expenses, how much do you keep versus how much you make. Is there an exit strategy, if applicable? Some businesses that will be, some it won't be applicable. But those are all questions around the business plan and strategy. And in your plan and strategy, what's working? What's not? As I went through that list, is there anything you want to jot down where you're like, oh, yeah, I need to, I need to go work on this thing that I've been neglecting? And I would say the number one key to an effective plan, or at least a key to an effective plan, is multiple streams of income. Not necessarily all started at the same time. That's actually a guaranteed way to overwhelm yourself, is to try to start 3 new streams of income all at the same time. But thinking of synergy and how can they complement each other. You can also have streams of income that are active, meaning that you have to actively work, actively do something, your time is involved, versus passive or semi-passive. My book is now completely passive, but it was a lot of work when I was writing it. It literally took years for me to write and research that book. So are you leveraging who you are and what you know, or are you always trading dollars for hours for dollars? A number 2 key to an effective plan, recognizing that you are your best and most valuable asset. How can you maximize your ability to earn money? It might be adding a new service, improving your skills, obtaining a certification, expanding your connections, whether that's your email list or the people that you're locally even networking with. I co-founded a local networking group last year with a hypnotherapist, my friend Claire Morency, and that's continuing to grow and starting to provide some leads. If you're increasing your confidence, and even some things that you might not think are related to money, like literally increasing your physical fitness, can have an impact on your money. I've got a story about that I don't have to tell, but I'm going to move on. Third key to an effective plan is that it's holistic. It's not just Wall Street centered. And I think this is my resistance to financial literacy, is that it's oftentimes very, very just one dimensional, and it involves what you're doing with your dollars, and it doesn't look at the larger thing. In our wealth alignment circle, we're looking at things like our thoughts, our emotions, our identity, our self-talk. In November, we're going to be exploring the body-mind connection, and I've got a member who is an expert in the in the nervous system work who's going to be doing a session with us. So all of those things are your goals. We reflect on the year together in December. We set goals together in January, intentions. I've got a whole process that people just absolutely love. I love it too. I've been doing it for years. So the Wall Street Centered Plan, it only cares about your net worth. And it only cares about your net worth because that's how the Wall Street advisors make their money. It's through assets under management. They want to get you to invest as much as possible. They want to keep it in their control with the types of investments that they provide, that they sell. But is that really a true measurement of your wealth and financial potential? I have a friend, Lisa, who uh, during the Great Recession, it was also not so great for her. She and her husband at the time lost everything, lost their business. They had run a successful contracting construction company for a number of years. It absolutely collapsed during the Great Recession, and they had a couple of homeowners who basically stiffed them, and they could not recover from that. She went on to build a very thriving business with a network marketing company with Isogenics. And she has earned to date more than $2 million of commissions through Isogenics. It didn't build her net worth, but it built her cash flow. And it built an asset for her, but the asset isn't a big chunk of money in a retirement account. The asset is a customer base of more than 9,000 customers. So you can see that there are different kinds of assets, many different kinds of assets. And that retirement account is a great asset to have, but it's only one type of asset. A holistic plan is going to consider your health, your mindset, your income, your expenses, your investments, your intellectual property, your other business assets, your unique strengths, your income potential. What's the most nurturing and sustainable lifestyle for you? I mentioned that self-employed folks tend to work longer and tend to be happier with their work. Well, that's only true if you're doing something that you enjoy. And I love to it's a whole separate thing. I'm going to be doing a class on it next week. I love sharing about what I call the new retirement paradigm. And the new retirement paradigm, one of my definitions for that is creating a life and work that you don't want to retire from. So that's part of that holistic plan. So we've talked about mindset, action, and plan, and the final S in the MAPS is support. I love this. This is an African. It's missing. I need to put, where is it? See, it's missing there we go. It's an African proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so there's many places we can get support. It comes from coaches and mentors, it could be assistants who are working underneath you, your team. It could be accountability buddies and colleagues, partners, collaborators. Could be people in the financial services industry, advisors, planners, accountants. Could be personal support. Sometimes I think, I don't need another coach. I need a housekeeper. I need, something completely different. So think about where you are well supported in your life, where you feel like you've got that box checked off. Think about where you can use greater support. If you're watching this on a replay, you might want to pause and give some attention to those things. If you're taking notes live, it might be something you make a note of to come back later. Where are you well supported? Where could you use greater support? So going back to this model, the mindset, the action, the plan, the support, everything impacts everything else. Looking at what is the weak link in that chain. In the local networking group, I went through this process with folks in a quick little like 12-minute talk a couple of weeks ago and had people identify like, oh, I need work on all of those. Oh, for me, it's really the plan. For me, it's really the mindset, looking at where you need support with there. If you took on money in a new way, what would be possible if you took advantage of the synergy of mindset, action, plan, and support? Sometimes I hear, I would say, especially folks over 50, self-employed folks who maybe haven't had that structure for saving and investing in a retirement account. I will hear them say things like, it's too late for me, or I'm just not sure what to do, or who do I go to for help? I want a second opinion. I know what to do, but I'm not doing it. How do I make the leap from where I am to where I want to be, which is really all about, my whole business of total wealth. That is what it is about. At this point, when I did this same program 2 years ago, I had a very, very specific offer that I was rolling out. My specific offer today for you is I did not finish this one, nor did I spell alignment correctly. There's a few different ways that you could work with me, and I'm inviting anyone who wants to explore this a chance to just set up a 20, 30-minute call. I'll have a link for you in just a moment, a complimentary consultation. Right now, I am still running the Wealth Alignment Circle. I probably still have some folks on the call. If anybody wants to say anything about the Wealth Alignment Circle, why you might enjoy it or what you get out of it or why you are showing up, feel free to briefly share, but this is a women's prosperity group. I'm sorry, George. I'm going to actually start my next. It is something that people can come and go from. I'm running a special right now for the next quarter from now through early January for a ridiculous price. I think it's $147 for a quarter of the Wealth Alignment Circle. There's also one-on-one work, and I've got a really interesting possibility right now because my beautiful furnished townhome in Cle Elum is vacant. I'm opening up this month to doing in-person VIP days. That's a higher ticket investment, but if anybody wants a little mini vacation, come out to Cle Elum, Washington. We can do a 1-day or a 2-day VIP together. And that's something and I also do one-on-one work on Zoom. It doesn't have to be an in-person VIP. It could simply be, a strategy session, that sort of thing. Like I think I do 2 hour or 2.5 hours, some kind of really meaty strategy sessions where we go over this whole quadrant. And the final thing that I'm rolling out soon is it's going to be the next version of the retirement revival. A couple of folks here have gone through my retirement revival program, which is all about the new retirement paradigm, and would love to get your reaction to this. I've been wanting to rename it partially because the word retirement, like, it kind of throws people a little bit off because they think it's all about retirement. And to some extent, it is a lifestyle program. And it is also around the idea that maybe you don't want to retire. If you're creating a life and work that you don't want to retire from, then the class is more about creating an alternative to retirement. It's rethinking and reimagining retirement rather than, the typical retirement. So the new title, The Rich Life. The Rich Life. I see George likes that. That's good. That's good. I think that is what it is going to be called in the next round, is The Rich Life. And those are the different ways that someone can work with me. No, I don't know what I was trying to fix the formatting, schmormatting. I'm gonna just ignore that. And I'm going to drop, if you want to have a 20-30 minute chat about exploring any of these options, I'm going to drop that in. Love it. It's the rich life. It's going to be, this time trying to get it down. It originally started as a shorter thing and then it got much longer. I'm looking at actually trying to do like a 12-week core program. And then it's also going to be sort of like a membership where moving forward, other people will be able to come in and you will continue to have support for, I'm not sure how long, but I would say at least 6 months, have some support of the group. So I think I dropped in my link for the Calendly there. And there we go. This is my final slide. Questions. Would you like my slides? You can email slides, please, to Kate at Total Wealth Coaching, and I will send these to you if you like. I'm also going to drop my email address into the chat. And I would love to know questions you have right now, questions and takeaways.
I do
That's
have
the
a question, but I don't
yes.
know if this is more appropriate during the one-on-one call. It's
Okay.
about pricing range for the one-on-one. Just because,
Okay.
yeah,
S- well, I'll send you off a chat. If
okay,
it's one-on-one virtual, I even have to go and look at my pricing. But I can send you
okay,
some options. I would say if it's virtual, depending on the length, it could definitely be less than 1,000. It can be more than 1,000.
right.
If we're working together multiple months, it would be more than 1,000. And if
Mhm.
it's a VIP in person, it is definitely in the four-figure range, meaning that it's
Makes sense. It makes
over
sense.
over $1,000
Yeah,
for that. But that gives you a little bit of a ballpark.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess my takeaway is the using the formats and bringing that down into like simple terms where I can like memorize it. Um, I I guess I didn't realize how much the support was a big factor for having a sustainable um money, health, and and that one quote. If you want to go far,
Yeah. You want to go fast, go
yeah,
alone. If you want to
fast
go
solo. If
far,
you want to go farther,
go
together, or
together.
something like that. So it's a great reminder.
Absolutely.
So I like that.
Yeah. Thanks so much for that. It's I used to teach this as the MAP formula, M.A.P, and it wasn't until I went through my own financial storm and years of recovery that sometimes kind of felt like walking through quicksand, and I finally realized that support really made the difference in terms of, um, you know, people to help me see my blind spots or keep me accountable, or, I have always made my best progress when I am in some kind of a group container. And whether that's, a mastermind, a course. I've done work with landmark education. I had a breakthrough around relationship doing a year-long course at my church. It can look different ways. And then also, I've really been also bringing in other financial professionals into my programs because I don't do everything. I have a pretty wide-ranging expertise and knowledge about certain things, but I don't do everything. I'm not an accountant. I'm not very good at helping people with budgets. It's like super specific and linear, and I'm like big idea, ADHD conceptual brain person, and I don't sell investments, I don't sell annuities, I don't sell life insurance, and sometimes those can be really great. Sometimes it's what people need, or a really traditional sort of financial plan. I am I do what I do and I don't do what others do. So I'm loving, partnering and working with some other folks as well. But thanks, George. That's a great aha, that support, seeing how important support is for you. Other folks, questions, ahas, questions, takeaways. Everybody's very quiet right now. Questions or takeaways? Anybody? Bueller?
I think I think I've heard this before, but I notice it in myself. Um, if you just take like one workshop or step into one class and then go, okay, this is all really good information, and then you go home and you don't have the support, you don't have the community or the ongoing contact. It's like you hit this high with the information, but you don't keep climbing on it. If you come back for more visits or more classes, you keep going up those stairs, higher and higher than just a one-shot deal, taking that one dose of information and ending it there. So I think that's part of why I keep coming back also. It keeps that interest, that learning continuing, and you keep adding more and more to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. That's a great takeaway. And it certainly has been how I live my life, that I have oftentimes gone back to the same mentors, or even sometimes repeating the exact same program, because I'm always learning more. And that not only is it the reinforcement of the information, but the programs tend to evolve. We are always evolving. We're not the same person now that we were even 1 year ago. And so we are encountering it in different ways. Like I mentioned, that one reason I put together the wealth alignment circle is I wanted the support group that I feel like I could use, and covering the topics, most of them really year after year, covering the same topics, or even some of the same, the intention setting, goal setting in January. Do you just do that once? Are you just like, goals 13 years ago, I'm good, or the money belief breakthrough, like I looked at my money beliefs 20 years ago, and we do, and we make those changes, but then moving forward, it's like, I need to keep going through that and keep doing. It's why we have rituals and traditions. And then I'm also just love the way that people start to get to know each other, that some of my repeat folks, that they come in and they're like, and they support each other. And that's just a beautiful thing. That's part of the support, is having the camaraderie. Yeah, George says, I got to know. Yeah, and now Pete and Tanya are getting to know each other in a different program. Love it. Oh, listen, Tanya, you're unmuted. Takeaways, questions?
I was just going to say, I agree with what Pat said. That was pretty insightful about you keep building on it and climbing. And also that repeating the same thing isn't necessarily a bad thing. Our brains like repetition, and it makes it become a part. I mean, you eat every day more than once, and I mean, there's things that you do that you do every day. So repetition isn't a bad thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, agree. We were talking about repetition last night. It's part of how we learn, it's part of how we change. I listened to a guided meditation last night and a different one this morning. I have probably listened to each of those 40 times. And I'm gonna keep listening to them. And sometimes I, shift. It's like, feel complete with that, and start listening to something else. But that's how we change, is we have we already have the narratives and the tapes and the stories running in our head that come from our past, from our family, from our culture. And so when we make those shifts, it is like it takes repetition. Yeah.
And
And we're always
plus, when
building.
you learn things and change, and you might be in a different place and see or hear something differently than you did the first or second or third or fifth time. And it resonates more with you that time because of something you're going through or just have been through.
Yes. Yes. I heard a metaphor recently about how, like, when you throw a rock or a pebble into the pond, that it's never the same pond. Like, you never get the exact same reaction because the water is always moving and changing. So you could throw the same pebble into the same pond, but it's never the same pond. Yeah. Any final questions or takeaways? This has been great.
Sometimes you're just ready to hear something.
Yeah.
It's been around before and da da da, and then you hear it again, or from a different person, or slightly worded differently, and you go, "Oh yeah," and you get it. So it's just timing, or where you are, or something. So
Definitely.
Um, so the last takeaway that I remember is you mentioned about having all of your interests, but aligning it all together. I feel like I'm on that path right now. So that's nice.
Mm, yeah. And there's nothing wrong with having different interests and even doing completely different, unrelated things. But there is, like, I know that George has a classical feng shui with George YouTube channel, and both YouTube channels and books like Amazon Books. One of my favorite things about both of those that I never shut up about is how, if you're building a business, and if you can have a book that helps you build your business or a YouTube channel that helps you build your business, you can make money marketing. You can get to market, which is just like mind blowing. And what I mean by that, it's more obvious with a book because you sell books, and even if you sell only 10 books, you get, the reward for that. With a YouTube channel, it takes more time and commitment to get that monetized, because you have to have a minimum of 1,000 subscribers. I'm at 665. Please go like my channel, subscribe if you haven't already. But and then a minimum amount of watch hours. But last weekend, in my YouTube addiction world, I discovered a couple of new channels that I thought were interesting. And one gal, I even reached out and said I'd like to interview her for something. Brand new channels. They were about the same size as mine in terms of, like, 600 and some subscribers, but both of them were like putting out daily or almost daily videos. They were like newer channels, but really aggressive. By the end of the weekend, they both had over 1,000, I think over 1,500. I watched as they doubled their subscribers in the next 2 days. And I was like, mind blown and super inspired. I was like, wow, like, I need to get back to taking my channel more seriously. I might, the replay for this, I might put this whole replay on YouTube. I think that might be a good idea. Yeah. So, well, thanks so much for coming today. And yeah, just thanks so much. I appreciate the humans, the interaction, the feel free to grab that calendar link if you want to talk about what might be next for you, whether you're on the replay or whether you're here live. Thanks so much. And yeah, just
and one more
this was great.
update
Yes.
on your address for your YouTube channel again, please.
Oh, I just realized I never plugged in my computer. I feel kind of lucky that we never got cut off here. I'm plugging it in. I'm going to drop that link in the chat as soon as I plug in my laptop. Did you know it doesn't work to have the laptop power cord just like sitting next to the laptop? Doesn't really work that way. Imagine that. And I also intended to have my Robinhood link live, and I for whatever reason I did not get that together. Yeah, there we go. I do have my youtube.com at Total Wealth, and I will drop that into the link. The next person will be 666. I got it to 667, and then I had 2 people unsubscribe. I guess they didn't like my last video. It's like going in the wrong direction, but it's like that. It's like you'll get 4 new subscribers, and then you'll lose 2, and then you'll get 4 new, and then you'll lose 1, and then you'll get 5 new, and then you'll lose 2. I know, how dare they? How dare they? But I think I entered that in. Total Wealth Show. Yep. So with that, I will wrap this up. Thanks so much for being here. And feel free, if you are listening to this on the replay, would love to hear your questions and your takeaways as well. Just reply to an email that you got this replay in and would love to hear it. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.